Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome to the show, everyone. It is Wednesday. My name is Nick Reed. It's really somewhat humorous to see these high profile Democrats whose names are popping up in the Epstein files, and suddenly we're all supposed to understand that just because someone's name's in the files doesn't mean they had something to do with Epstein. The same people who will then say, Trump's name's in the Epstein Trump is in the Epstein files. Oh, well, so are yours. Well, now, come on. Just because someone's name is in it, let's not be ridiculous. It's amazing to watch this sudden burst of adult responsibility that the left expects people to have in the general public when it comes to these Epstein files. I've heard. In fact, we've got audio. Whoopi Goldberg is one of the people whose names popped up in there because her people were asking Jeffrey Epstein if she could use his private jet for an event. And so she addresses it on The View and is explaining, come on, people. Come on. Just because my name's in it. And of course, she's being defended. While in the same conversation, Joy Behar's like, well, Trump's name's in it 83,000 times. You ever notice they don't really ever give specific examples of what, they're not like, oh, well, victim number 38 said that on this day, Trump did this and that and so forth. You notice that doesn't occur? You notice that there aren't, some, and some of these victims that are now adults, they have come out publicly. They have, one of them even wrote a book regarding Prince Andrew, I believe, or her time at Epstein, and she was the one that was pictured, I think, with Prince Andrew. But, where are these people? It's similar to Democrats claiming that Donald Trump, at that speech, incited a riot on January 6th, telling people to storm the Capitol, but they never play the audio of it. You never see it in campaign ads. You never see it in news clips, even on the anniversary of January 6th, which was a even darker day in this country than 9/11. They never play any audio or video of Donald Trump doing any of that. On 9/11, you see footage of the planes hitting the towers. You hear the communications, like anything and everything that's available. And January 6th, which we're told by Democrats was worse than 9/11 itself, yet the visuals, the audio of Donald Trump instructing people to go out and to try and overthrow the government in an insurrection, they never play that. It's almost like it didn't really happen. When it comes to Donald Trump's names are in the Epstein files, they never really talk about what it is that was in the Epstein files. Now, the reason for that, and there's some real far left-wing lunatics who buy into anything that will, but because the anti-Trump Democrat that is somewhat grounded in reality knows that, well, much of what references Donald Trump in the Epstein files was Donald Trump trying to get Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell nailed. Back in 2006, while everyone else was still palling around with Epstein, and prosecutors in Florida were essentially trying to figure out any way they could to not go after Epstein, Donald Trump was on the phone with a lead investigator saying, this guy's a bad guy. You guys need to get him. By the way, Ghislaine Maxwell, that's his sidekick, his partner in crime. She's a bad dude. She is evil, is the term that he used. Need to get her as well. This is why you don't hear them specifying what it was in terms of referencing Donald Trump in the Epstein files, or on the flip side, they were so easily provably not true and absurd that normal people would see it and go, well, I mean, obviously, that's not true. We've referenced one in which an anonymous caller claimed that she was raped by Donald Trump on a certain year at one of his golf courses, a golf course that hadn't even been built. At that point, it was 10 years before it would be built. That same caller claimed that Hillary Clinton was the one that actually blew up the Oklahoma City bombing, the federal building there. Not like arranged for it, but actually drove the vehicle and parked it in front of the federal building and blew it up. So when you notice that people on the left will cite these numbers of, well, Trump's been in it this many times, as if the fact that he's in it, they don't specify. And then they also, when you point out one of their faves is also in it, well, now, just because the name is in it, I mean, that doesn't mean any, oh, you can tell by the details that this individual didn't do anything wrong. And very often that is true. But that rationale, that logical approach is only utilized by the left when it is protecting their own. Because none of this, victims do not matter to them. Human trafficking does not matter to them as an issue itself, as a sin itself. It is, how can we use this against our enemies? Every person, be they hero or villain, serves one purpose, and that is for their acquisition of power. Hillary Clinton sat down with the BBC. She was asked about her ties to Epstein. We'll play some of that. And I'm, of course, once again, oh no, our constant intermingling with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Now that was just different. See, everyone knows that when we do it, it's okay. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert, I know.
I didn't have your microphone turned
I know.
on.
Well, then I thought my headphones were turned all the way down. I'm like, why am I not hearing myself here? The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 50. For your Thursday, sunny and breezy with a high near 71. And for Friday, sunny skies with a high near 53.
I have to be careful as I roll around Butters to make sure she is not underfoot.
I know. Well, I have to go to Mass here in a little bit, and that's why I haven't left yet, is because I don't want to, she's over there by the door. I don't want to open the door and then have her come out and it'd be a whole thing.
Nah, it's fine. But, so Butters, the dog, has a vet appointment after the show, so Butters is in studio today, and the period of time that you're at Mass, perhaps she can fill in. If she'd sit in one place, we could put the camera on her.
I wish she would. She's so cute.
She's something.
I love her.
She's something.
I wish you would bring her every day.
She's going to, well, you and Chelsea both this morning, who does the morning show on KT, we're just going on and on. Why don't you bring her every morning? And I had to remind the two of you, you have dogs. This isn't as if you are dogless individuals that just long for a dog, and this is what, you have them.
But I love your dog, specifically.
All right, the Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. You want to text in also. Oh, the keyword for today. Let's not forget coming up Trace Adkins 30 years. Black Oak Amphitheater, June 13th, and you can purchase tickets now, or you can enter to win them by way of texting the Pyramid Roofing text line 417-447-KSGF, and the word is swing. As in, is that from a song, I guess? Yeah. Okay, yes, swing. SWING. Text the word swing, and that is the keyword for today. We'll have one tomorrow and Friday as well. Every day, your chance to win a pair of passes for that upcoming concert. Details at ksgf.com. Hillary Clinton sat down and did an interview with the BBC, and she was asked about Jeffrey Epstein. As you know, the Clintons are not only sprinkled out, so particularly Bill Clinton, the Epstein files, which, according to the left, means that you're guilty. They also are subpoenaed and scheduled to testify at the end of the month. I believe the 26th and 27th, 26th for Bill, 27th for Hillary. I still am predicting that they are going to figure out a way to get out of it, or at least continue to attempt to. They've laid the groundwork by demanding that it be public as opposed to behind closed doors, which, just so you understand the difference here, the real meaningful stuff is the behind closed doors, if you will, because that is when actual attorneys do the questioning. And there aren't cameras there for politicians to grandstand. And it is essentially information gathering. Then, subsequent to that is when you get the public hearing, and based off of the evidence that is gathered by the attorneys asking the questions, the members of whether it's the House or the Senate side will then formulate 5 minutes worth of Q&As, which very often are, again, about grandstanding, about making a point, about utilizing, oftentimes, if possible, the information gathered behind closed doors in order to bolster their case. But that is what that is for. So these serve two very different purposes, and the Clintons know that. It's also oftentimes the difference between being under oath versus not, oftentimes. And they know that as well. And I suspect that this, well, we want to do it publicly. It's going to be similar to a Hunter Biden situation in which once the moment comes, there will be a refusal and accusations of cover-up. And if you're so concerned about the truth, why not be transparent? And, it's just a repeat of Hunter Biden. That being said, of course, they are front and center in all of this. While the Epstein files show Donald Trump, as far as 20 years ago, was the lone voice telling investigators, you need to get these people. You need to get not only, this was again, and I know for some of you, you have heard this, but others haven't. When there were allegations on a state level in Florida against Epstein, and it became clear that prosecutors were really doing what they could to not go after him. Donald Trump was the one on the phone saying not only him, but there's a gal named Ghislaine Maxwell you may not be familiar with. She's in on this too. While he was doing that, Bill Clinton was flying all over the world with Epstein, inviting Epstein to weddings, or to a high-profile wedding in place of Hillary. And according to at least one of the depositions from a girl from the island, said he was on the island. Hillary Clinton, during this BBC interview that aired yesterday, was asked about these ties. And this wasn't, you'll hear, a question as to if there are ties, because it is, it's undeniable. You have photos of the guy in a hot tub with one, of the presumed victims with a woman on Epstein Island, among other photos. Here's the exchange.
What I want to know is, do you regret the links that there have been between Epstein, Maxwell, and the Clinton family?
Well, let me start by saying that a law was passed in Congress to require that all the files that have anything to do with them be released. And what we're seeing, I think it's fair to say, is a continuing cover-up by the Trump administration. In fact, when the Attorney General testified last week, it was quite a scene because she refused to answer questions. She diverted attention away from the matters at hand. She refused to look at the survivors. So there's something about this administration's attitude toward this, which I think really leads us to conclude they have something to hide. We don't. We have been willing to say whatever we know. We've even done it under oath. But they want us to testify, not everyone else who's mentioned many, many times, hundreds of thousands of times in these files. So we've said, fine, let us do it in public. And we will appear in public and we'll answer all your questions.
And we'll get to that in just a moment. But just to be clear, do you regret the links that there have been?
We have no links. We have a very clear record that we've been willing to talk about, which my husband has said. He took some rides on the airplane for his charitable work. I don't recall ever meeting him.
Did you ever meet Ghislaine Maxwell?
I did on a few occasions. And thousands of people go to the Clinton Global Initiative. So,
I mean, we understand the playbook. And it's the playbook that the media abides by and perpetrates. If you have any sort of connection to Jeffrey Epstein, just eat whatever it is, and you are a Republican or Donald Trump, then you are guilty. If you are connected to Epstein, even up to and including photos in a hot tub with women on Epstein Island, getting a massage from what appears to be an underage girl in one photo, even if all of that, well, now that's don't you understand? We're Democrats. That's charitable work. My husband was doing charitable work. You got to give this to Hillary, I'd say, though. After all these years, she still stands by her man. No matter how many women he has relations with, whether it's consensual or up to, with the case of Juanita Broderick, accused rape. And, I mean, you can list all the in-betweens, the Kathleen Willies and the others that have alleged physical sexual harassment. Paula Jones, which he had to admit to, in which here some gal working as a hotel clerk has law enforcement pull her away to bring her up to a room in which he exposed himself so that she could, quote, perform on him, something that he would have to acknowledge. The Monica Lewinsky deal. I mean, just the list of, and now you've got him and these photos of him with these girls. I mean, Hillary Clinton, she is just the good little woman. This is the same gal who runs around portraying women who vote Republican as only doing so because their husbands tell them to. Have you ever seen a woman that over such an extended period of time has been married to someone that so brazenly humiliates her by having relationships, consensual or otherwise, with women during their entire history of public life, and she still defends him? Still. What a tremendous example for young women. Every time you have, whether it's Girl Scouts or some sort of feminist organization, hold her up as an icon. Is there anyone that has been more of a willing doormat to a man than Hillary Clinton? And here she is once again in 2026, standing by her man despite photos, despite testimony, despite all of that. She's still such a good little woman. This is what we're told is the strong, independent woman who won't put up with guff. She's a doormat. Now, we've got she's asked specifically about the pictures of Bill Clinton. We'll play that audio coming up here. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. All right, I'm going to try to be a bit mindful of the, quote, clock, meaning hit the brakes when I am supposed to, and hit traffic, as traffic, of course, is juggling a number of different stations, and so sometimes I hit them a little bit late, as you can imagine. That isn't the most convenient thing. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and throw it to traffic, and then we'll get to rolling. I'll give you the latest weather as Sarah stepped out to go to Mass Ash Wednesday, and then I want to play the Hillary Clinton audio, the BBC report. One of the things, though, I do want to point out I thought was funny about the previous audio, and I've noticed this before with some BBC reporters. While they are certainly leftist, they are less easily, perhaps willfully or otherwise, distracted. And so what Hillary Clinton is accustomed to in the audio that played earlier, she was asked about her Epstein ties. And she starts going on about, well, recently Congress passed a law and the Trump administration this and that, and just going on pivoting to Trump. And when she was done, the BBC reporter's like, okay, yes. But about those Epstein ties, right, just lets her go on, and then but does not get diverted. Whereas the media allows her, or Democrats in that situation, to sort of reset the conversation to start talking about Donald Trump. And I just found that to be somewhat amusing. The level of not just the patience, but just, okay, go ahead, keep distracted. All right, now let's get back to the point here. So she's asked about the Clinton pictures, specifically at Epstein Island. That next. I'm Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast sponsored by J&S Automotive from meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sunny, 74 for a high today. Mostly clear, 50 tonight. Sunny, breezy, 71 tomorrow. Then cooler front coming through. Sunshine on Friday. Kicking off the weekend with a high near 53. Hillary Clinton, during a BBC interview, being asked about their ties with the Epstein, and she declares that there are no ties, but then goes on to explain that all the ties that they did actually have were completely legitimate, that Bill Clinton in particular was like the one guy who, despite dozens and dozens of usage of the plane, and according to victims of Jeffrey Epstein, was on Epstein Island, that was just pure as the driven snow. Given his reputation as a womanizer, particularly his eye for younger women, including interns that were roughly the same age as his own daughter. Yet when it came to an island and all these young intern-age girls, not only was he in those moments suddenly pure as the driven snow, all of that was kept from him. It was not believed that he would have any interest whatsoever in that sort of entertainment, apparently, which is how he didn't know anything about it. No clue. While everyone else, and we know everyone else, knew about it. I hate to recap this stuff, but sometimes we have to step back and just recognize the absurdity. While, again, Donald Trump, as far back as 2006, according to the Epstein files, was telling prosecutors, you need to get this guy and Ghislaine Maxwell. This is because it was known what he was doing. All of these people, well, we had absolutely no idea. And, it's fair to also say, perhaps some people, they heard these things were going on, and they still communicated with him. That doesn't mean, one, that they knew for sure it was going on, and two, it doesn't mean that they were participating in the events, activities. But we are supposed to believe Bill Clinton, who we all know, by his own admission, liked younger women and liked a volume of them, was the one guy that, despite being VIP in Epstein World and all the visits and that was the one guy that they made sure, well, now we don't need Bill to know about this. This just isn't his thing. And that somehow no one in the Clinton world, with all of their connections, ever once mentioned, hey, I don't know if you've heard this or not. This is what we're supposed to believe. All right. Hillary's asked by the BBC about photos of Bill in the Epstein files.
What was your reaction when you saw some of the material that has been released? I'm thinking, for example, of images of your husband apparently in a hot tub in a swimming pool on Epstein's plane. What was your reaction to that? And do you know the context surrounding some of those images?
Absolutely. And it wasn't a hot tub on a plane. It was one of the stops they made to look at philanthropic and charitable work that my husband has done, saving literally millions of lives around the world. It turned out that was done long before there was any public awareness and certainly any conviction of any crime by Jeffrey Epstein. So it was a short period of time that was in pursuit of charitable philanthropic work. A lot of people were traveling at the same time. Many staff members, guests, other supporters of the foundation. If Bill and I had a penny for every person we've taken pictures with, we would be extremely rich today.
And/or every woman Bill was accused of sexually assaulting or harassing. We'd be very, very rich. I love her dismissive nature of this. She's not dismissing the photo. And by the way, the photo of the woman's face is covered up in the photo, which means one of two things. She was either a sex trafficking victim, or she was a minor, one of the two. And so here she's being asked about her husband in a photo in Jeffrey Epstein's world, in a hot tub or jacuzzi, whatever it is, with somebody that is either a sex trafficking victim or a minor. And when the woman asks about it, she references that, it's on the plane. Obviously, it wasn't, on the plane, but his island or wherever. And she's like, first off, it wasn't on the plane. It was just a stop elsewhere. Oh, okay. That's the real sticking point here. If it was on the plane, that would be one thing. But listen, when he was taking a dip with a sex trafficking victim, it wasn't on the plane. Get your facts straight. See, all of this stuff is why you folks on the left are recognized as idiots. You stand on the side of the road with your signs accusing Trump, the guy who has for years been telling the feds and helping the feds, giving them information. One of the attorneys for one of the victims said there was one person, only one, that was 100% completely cooperative, and that was Donald Trump. That's the attorney for a victim. And while I'm not here to claim that, the messaging's been horrible on this, and Pam Bondi's been horrible on this, and I'm not even here to claim that there isn't perhaps some attempt to kind of, some of these high-profile people whose names are in here, but they didn't necessarily do anything wrong. We'd like to protect them. It's possible that stuff is happening, but you idiots out there that are running around trying to, because I think you believe it, that the one guy who consistently has been the whistleblower, who is consistently, who banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago while all these other people were still hanging out with him. You have actual photos of Bill Clinton with either a sex trafficking victim or a minor, with what Hillary Clinton admits is with Jeffrey Epstein, but it wasn't on his plane, see, so it doesn't matter. And in your head, somehow, Donald Trump is the one that's being covered for here? You understand why it is people look at you and think you're lunatics? I guess largely because you are. Whoopi Goldberg's name also in this. That part of the entertainment value here, particularly from these people on the left who have been hounding away, presenting this entire thing as if your name is in the files, that's proof you've done something wrong. And then these same people having their names in the file and then scrambling and acting like it's some no-brainer that, just because someone's name's in the file doesn't mean they did anything wrong. Oh, that's how it works now? Whoopi Goldberg next. Ozarks elder law, one of the big obstacles for a lot of folks, mental, in making sure that you have that will, you have that trust set up, you have all of the paperwork lined up when it comes to power of attorney, or making sure that any assets you leave behind are protected from government, and your kids, upon receiving them, are protected from government. It's fear of just the cost of the consultation, and you're going to go in there, and they're like, all right, well, it's $100 an hour. Bring us all your paperwork, and then we'll look over it. We'll call you, and you're like, how long is this going to take? Well, it just depends. We don't know. It takes on average from 1 to 8 hours, and so just to get the consultation, you're thinking, well, there's $100 to $800 possibly just out of the gate just to find out if I need to do something. Toss all that aside. Ozarks Elder Law, all of that is a courtesy. The time, the effort, the man hours, that is a service, that is a public service that they provide to you because they don't want that to be an obstacle. And it takes any sort of excuses or fear out of the way. Then, once they've gone through all the information that you have and they have customized based off your situation, what it is you need to do in all areas of protection, they'll let you know, here's what it takes, and this is what it'll cost. And then you make the decision. 10 area locations. Again, the consultation is a courtesy. Get set up by going to ozarkselderlaw.com. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Whoopi Goldberg. I love these people on the left who have indicted, found guilty anyone whose names is in the Epstein files until theirs pop up. And I can't help but wonder, we're going to play Whoopi Goldberg. She's doing a full disclosure on The View yesterday because her name is in the files. And I'm wondering if some of these people, if they're just, they know that there's, some sort of, like, well, I know 15 years ago, I emailed him about this, or 15 years ago, my agent reached out and asked for this favor and that favor. I wonder if that'll pop up, and they just sort of gamble it won't. But then, well, if it does, I'll just, be like, well, look, clearly, the rules are different for me. I'm not guilty just because I'm in it. Or if it's a total surprise for some of these people. I think some of us, just because of our lifestyles and our lack of influence, we know clearly we're not in this stuff. Like, I could 100% not in the Epstein files. You're probably the same way. You can't help but wonder if some of these names, some of these people are like, wait, what? Because maybe their manager reached out, or their publicist reached out and was kind of looking for a favor, but they didn't bother telling the person they represent, and then maybe it didn't happen, and so they just never brought it up to them, and now suddenly their name is popping up in these Epstein files, and like, I've never even met the guy. I wouldn't even know how to get a hold of them. When you're talking about tens of millions of documents, someone has to fall into that situation. So here's Whoopi Goldberg, her name in the files, explaining it yesterday on The View.
In the name of transparency, can you put up, my name is in the files? Yes.
Oh,
and what does it say? It says, Whoopi needs a plane to get to Monaco. John Lennon's charity, it should say Julian Lennon's charity, is paying for it. They don't want to charter, so they're looking for private owners. Here's the info. And they give all the information, and they're saying, do you want to offer your G2? Okay.
And it looks like they said no thanks.
Yeah.
So in other words, anybody can be on this list.
Well, this is my point,
big
because
deal.
I'm telling you, when I tell you people are trying to turn me into, I wasn't his girlfriend, I wasn't his friend.
You were too old for him.
I was not only too old, but it was at a time, where this is just not, you used to have facts before said stuff.
But Trump is on the list 38,000 times.
Well, I can't speak to him, but I'm speaking about me because I'm getting dragged. People actually believe that I was with him. It's like, honey, come on.
Here's how it works in the mind of the left. They're the good guys. People who aren't on the left are bad guys. So if you're one of them and your name's in it, listen, come on, we're the good guys. You can hear almost the indignancy. I mean, you guys know. This is ridiculous. Don't you know I'm one of the good guys? Obviously, I don't have any, which, by the way, I highly doubt that she did have, now I find it difficult to believe that most of these people hadn't at least heard of his reputation. I find that difficult to believe. But it is possible, and I highly doubt that Whoopi Goldberg was out there recruiting girls or participating in any of the escapades. But lots of people are in that same situation who are on the other end of the political spectrum, but they don't get that same benefit, do they? No, because they're the bad guys. The facts don't matter. Whether one did anything that was unsorted or illegal or evil or awful, none of that matters. What matters is whether you're a good guy or a bad guy in their minds. That's the world they've created. And when the good guys have these connections, up to and including Bill Clinton, well, that's just, obviously we didn't do anything wrong. And even if he did, he's still one of the good guys. Now, you don't believe me on that mental positioning of the left? There was when Bill Clinton, it was really the peak of all of this information coming out about him and rape and sexual assault and just everything in between. There was some feminist who had written, I think it was an op-ed piece, about how none of that mattered to her. Didn't matter. Because as president, his policies were in line with what she wanted as a feminist. So it didn't matter if he raped. Didn't matter if he sexually assaulted. Didn't matter. None of that made a difference to her because he was, quote, one of them, one of the good guys. Whoopi Goldberg is a leftist. She's one of the good guys. And so, well, of course, you should just know that I didn't do anything wrong. Suddenly, she's going on and on about how facts just don't seem to matter any longer. How many segments have they done painting Donald Trump doing something wrong when there was absolutely no facts that supported that? In fact, before Whoopi Goldberg in that exchange can get the words out, complaining about the fact that people just don't seem to care about facts anymore, you have Joy Behar saying, yeah, when Trump was in it 38,000 times. Well, Whoopi Goldberg was in there too. Well, but that's different, see. It just, these people, they live in a different world. Their brains don't work in a way that is after truth and people's behavior and their actions. They have tribes set up. These are individuals, if they heard of something horrific occurring, if there was allegations, we've got video. If that were to be real, there's video of a high-profile politician. And we got him nailed dead to rights with an underage girl. They would hold back until they found out whether it was one of theirs or one of theirs. See, if it's one of theirs, well, that doesn't mean anything. And, well, I mean, we don't know. She could have been 16. And while maybe that technically was illegal, I mean, clearly, have you seen 16-year-olds today? I mean, they're having consensual sex all the time. They would excuse it away. But if it was one of the opposition, lock them up, throw them in jail. One of the names that has, I don't think we're going to have time for this I'll just mention it here briefly after traffic. Steve Bannon. Some of the mentions for Steve Bannon in there really look like Bannon was kind of coordinating with Epstein of getting Trump thrown out of office during the first administration. Now, Bannon saying, "Oh no, I was just doing journalistic work, and it doesn't, it's not what it appears." But you can imagine why a lot of people that are Trump supporters are suddenly going, "Wait a minute here," beginning to question Steve Bannon in all of this. Now, most of you probably know maybe the name Steve Bannon. And there's probably a very small segment that actually follows Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon is someone that Democrats had thrown in prison for defying a subpoena because he's a Republican, and he's been a big Trump supporter. But the documents included text messages and emails from late 2017 through July of 2019 between Epstein and Bannon that have a lot of conservatives quite upset. Bannon said in one of the text messages, White House, zero plans to punch back. Epstein responded, referring to Trump. He's really borderline, not sure what he may do, to which Bannon replied, I think it's beyond borderline 25 amendment. Another part of the exchange, Bannon wrote that we really need an intervention regarding Trump. So you've got former National Security Advisor Flynn saying that Bannon and Epstein were behind all of this impeachment stuff. Bannon needs to be brought in for questioning. Marjorie Taylor Greene saying no excuse for having such a relationship with Epstein post-conviction. None. Bannon saying that, hey, I'm a filmmaker and a TV host with decades of experience interviewing controversial figures. So that's his latest remarks on the issue. But clearly there are more questions people are going to have for Bannon with that talk, that anti-Trump talk with Epstein. Springfield's Talk 1041, streaming live, KSGF.com. KSGF.com. Also, you can get signed up for Lunch Bunch. Wednesdays, today we'll be having a Lunch Bunch. Godfather's Pizza, specifically the Springfield location where they always have not just a pizza buffet, but a salad bar as well. And if you'd like to join Sarah and me for lunch, for a Lunch Bunch, just go to KSGF.com, get signed up there. If you win, you'll be contacted and you'll get to join us. We'll pick a day, get it on the calendar, and you can bring up to 5 people with you, and we'll just enjoy one another's company and, of course, some of the best pizza in the 417 at Godfather's Pizza. We got a text to win going on today. Trace Atkins is going to be at Black Oak Amphitheater, and that is on Saturday, June 13th. You can purchase tickets or you can text the Pyramid Roofing Company text line. For your chance to win a pair, just text the word SWING, SWING, to 417-447-KSGF, and that'll be your entry today. If you don't win today, don't worry. We'll do another keyword with another pair tomorrow as well as Friday as we kick off the weekend, which, of course, we will do from Scramblers, the Friday Road Show, every Friday there. Okay. I want a great homeloan.com. You have home loan needs. You got the characters in their team. Absolute best. If you have already started the process or elsewhere, perhaps the process is dragging on. You feel like what is taking so long? Or perhaps they just kept throwing up obstacles, making it difficult, or said, yeah, we just really don't know we can do anything for you. Go to the characters in their team. Let them have a look at it. Now, they can't make magic, but it's a pretty common theme that people who have dealt with frustrations elsewhere, had what they felt was the ball being dropped, things going nowhere. They've gone to iwantagreathomeloan.com to get the process started with the characters in their team. And that, when I say that process, I'm talking about their contact info is there. You can reach out to them, stop by the office to visit, give them a call if you want, and find out what they can do for you. And you may find yourself quite surprised. Or even if you already have, through some other institution, you have gone through the process, and they tell you, here's what we can offer you. Have the characters in the team do a second look, because you may find they can do a better job for you. And if maybe it's the same deal, and you're comfortable with where you are, and that's absolutely fine, but at least then you know. iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. A new group has formed to support the Springfield Convention Center plan. We all are pretty familiar with the background here. The city of Springfield wants a new convention center. They asked the voters the end of last year to approve another tax increase in Springfield that would go on, hotels, Airbnbs, motels, in order to pay for it. And in a surprise to most people, including apparently the city and those who wanted it, the people were like, no, we don't think so. We've said yes to every tax increase over the past 20, 30 years. We've just had no on this one. Clearly unacceptable to the city. And so they set out to gather information for the purposes of repackaging the messaging, the marketing, so that they could have another crack at it and hopefully message in a way that will take some of the no votes, turn them yes, or get people out who didn't vote the first time to get out and vote. And these things are usually in some capacity coordinated, whether it's loosely or, more specific. And so this should come as no surprise that a group is forming in order to rally support for this. And I suspect they're going to be kind of the marketing wing of this, campaigning for it, telling everyone how wonderful and necessary it is. And they may provide information that wasn't put out there before, that is legit information. We don't know. I suspect what they're going to do is take the information that the city used when it did these little surveys asking people who are citizens, hey, what would make you say, you know what, I think I would like one after all. All of that was very brazen research for marketing purposes, and in all likelihood, that is the sort of information they'll use in order to market this thing. And it's coming up on April 7th is the vote. And the voters are going to be asked to weigh 3% increase to the city's hotel-motel tax paid by those who book hotel rooms, short-term rentals in order to fund $175 million convention center on the current Springfield Exposition Center property and the vacant lot adjacent to it. And so the plan now apparently is not really necessarily build a brand new one, but add on to the old one, the Exposition Center. And as we get closer to the date, we will go back over much of the information, including the altering of some numbers in terms of how much can be expected to be raised by way of the tax increase, and you know, based off of some of the growth projections, they changed those numbers that led to a more favorable outcome. There are also a lot of questions regarding when they talk about the numbers of people who they predict will visit the convention center. Well, how many of those people are from outside of the city that are actually going to be staying the night, that are going to be spending dollars at area stores and go to Bass Pro because they've never been to Springfield before, versus local conventions that are a draw for people who are either in Springfield or close enough to Springfield that they're not going to stay the night and spend a weekend here because of the convention. There is also, as I recap many of the highlights here, the one of the entities that they hired in order to look at all of this in the landscape had said, look, the only way that any of this can work is to have like a hotel attached with 800 plus rooms or whatever the numbers were, and the city fully acknowledged, yeah, we don't really have any plans for that, other than sort of throwing it out there to see if anybody's interested in building one. You know, well, these are a lot of really big ifs. And it's the sort of thing that I imagine are these unanswered questions. If you were asking just a private investor, hey, we'd like you to invest in this, the information we have, they'd say, no, are you kidding? No way. There is not nearly enough information here, or the right questions aren't being asked, the right answers aren't being given, some of the stipulations are not being fulfilled. No. So this group is called Friends of Springfield, and they have formed in order to market to you why this is a good idea. According to a news release, this is in the news leader sent by the group. It is co-chaired by Sally Hargis and Marshall Kinney. Hargis is the vice president and chairman of Ozarks Coca-Cola. Dr. Pepper Kinney is regional president for it says Springfield of Point C. I don't know if that is supposed to say Point C of Springfield, or if I'm familiar with Point C, but it's formerly MedPay. They handle, well, I can tell you what their site says: transforming the healthcare experience by curating, integrating, and administering benefit plans. Now, this would just be my suggestion. How about it become the Coca-Cola Dr. Pepper Point C Convention Center? Coca-Cola's got a little extra walking around money. Point C, I imagine, probably not quite as much, but might be able to contribute a little something. You see naming rights all the time. You constantly see these different facilities that are built with at least some degree of financial backing enough to get a name on the building. How much are they going to kick in? If you have leadership with these two companies, particularly a company you're talking about Ozarks Coca-Cola and Dr. Pepper and the clear connections that are there and the amount of revenue that is there, I'd support that. Slap the name on the building, take care of it. Problem solved. Coca-Cola could have exclusive rights to the vending machines and the snack bars, the concession stands. They could at least go in halvesies so that the taxpayers, instead of being on the hook for $175 million, you could really knock that down. I wonder if that's an option that they will discuss. But just throwing out, trying to throw out their different ideas, potential solutions in order to help this thing move forward. Latest news update. And that first alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Tom Schmidt, meteorologist. Sunny 74 today. Landis mentioned that. Tonight, clear 50 for a low, 71 tomorrow. Friday, sunny, high near 53. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line, the question was asked, what was the margin on the vote in November in which the convention center tax did not pass? And the margin was 52.56% against, 47.44% in favor of it. So a decent spread of about 6 points. Now, that being said, the turnout was only 7,472 individuals. So it would not take a tremendous amount of change the other way. While that margin is a significant margin just because of the numbers, it's not insurmountable. And I'm sure that was part of their evaluation when they decided to do the marketing or the research so that they could market. And then, of course, you get the formulation of this group that's going to do the campaigning based off of, I'm sure, that research for the marketing purposes. And another text coming in noted that, well, okay, so this is going to an April ballot, low voter turnout, and generally speaking, when municipalities want tax increases, this is the ballot that they put it on. By the way, this is something that right now is a legislative discussion point in Jeff City about whether to change that. We'll talk about that later. But everyone knows this is how it works. And the reason that they do it this way, or at the very least, the reason it benefits them, is because you have low voter turnout during the April elections, and those who are directly impacted are, in all likelihood, going to be the ones to turn out. And so what happens is, let's say the city wants a tax increase, and it's going to go for something that is a direct benefit to employees. Well, you've got those employees, you have other employees of the government, you have their families and their friends and people of circle that will all go out because they feel like, oh, hey, I'm helping out Tim. Or, hey, this is going to be something that benefits our family directly. And while the direct impact on the voter is the tax increase, usually there's not a real campaign voice collectively out there against it. Because you don't have that cohesiveness. The people that are for the tax increases generally are, they're already perhaps in some sort of union, they're together. So they are already together, which makes it easy to come up with messaging and marketing. But when it comes to taxpayers overall, you generally don't find that there is this collective grouping of people that are against it to the point that they're going to raise money and go out there and buy campaign ads and market. And so not only do you have the pro-tax increase folks dominating any sort of messaging out there, but they're a built-in base. It's like a head start on the vote. And so many people believe this will help in the effort for the convention center. And I think that it could very well, but I think it is different. And I believe it's different because you don't really have a collective grouping of people that are employees within city government that are necessarily going to feel as if they're benefiting directly from this. We're not talking about pensions for employees and their families. We're not talking about, building new fire stations, which all firefighters are, potentially going to be on board for because they need it. And, it helps expand their footprint. And so you got that built in. Or when teachers, something to do with schools. And that just doesn't really necessarily exist as a built-in base so much. I think that the other side of it, because this is asking for something kind of new and shiny, and it's not about helping people who do good for the community, like police or firefighters, continue to exist or get something that they were promised or deserved, but instead, hey, we need a new convention center. I don't know, that just doesn't, I think for a lot of voters, they're just like, no, I think we've gotten enough tax increases already. So I guess point being is I don't know that the vote in the April election is going to necessarily have as much help for the pro-tax increase people that it usually does, just because of the unique circumstances involved. Now, I could be wrong. Like I said, they clearly believe that at least they have a shot now that they have research on what it is that people would like to hear the convention center is going to do. They know how to better spin it to people or present it to people, I guess would be a more fair way to say it. And they have an organization that's forming that's going to pool money together by marketing and do a lot of things proactively that wasn't done last time around. And of the two things, I think that is the thing that certainly, if there's going to be a difference made, that's where it's going to be. We've got, I want coming up to talk here about just the brazen dishonesty of Stephen Colbert, in which he falsely claimed that the FCC under Donald Trump banned him from having Texas Democrat Senate candidate James Tallarico on his show. And he claimed that the reason this occurred is because Republicans are afraid that this will go from a Republican seat to a Democrat seat. Well, there's a number of things wrong with this argument. One, it's just a flat-out lie. Even CBS, even Jasmine Crockett is calling this out. Now, the reason she's calling it out is because, this is a brazen attempt to alter the outcome of the election, but it's not against Republicans. It's against Jasmine Crockett. So you've got Democrats screwing Democrats here. Now, and I'll explain why that is coming up here. It sounds like it's potentially confusing, but it's actually very simple. And ultimately, this is just Stephen Colbert straight up lying. 100%. And knowing that he's lying. Very exclusive. First Alert Forecast. Sponsored by J&S Automotive from meteorologist Tom Schmidt. And it's going to be a sunny day, high of 74. Beautiful day. Mostly clear, 50 tonight. Sunny, breezy, 71 tomorrow. Cool front coming through Friday. Sunshine, 53. CBS exposes the James Tallarico lie just as early voting begins. Now, this is regarding the primary vote in Texas, with early voting beginning. I think it started yesterday. And this is the Ted Cruz race. This is the race that Jasmine Crockett is in. There were a couple of other Democrats involved. One of the Democrats dropped out, but then you have James Tallarico, who has not dropped out. And, you know, this is a guy that has what many would consider to be a more serious background, though not someone that has the media notoriety as Jasmine Crockett, but he has the ability to go on television and not sound like a nutcase. He is a nut. I mean, this is a guy who claims that Christianity supports killing your unborn children. So, you know, he's psychotic. And so the little public battle that has occurred here is on the eve of early voting. Stephen Colbert scheduled James Tallarico to be on his show, but not Jasmine Crockett. Now, she's been on before, but we're into early voting in Texas. Now, there's something that is called, and many of you are familiar with it, equal time, though there's a lot of misunderstandings about equal time. The concept behind equal time in terms of candidates is, first off, it is isolated to public airwaves. Public airwaves are airwaves like what we use. They're out there. They're floating around. You can't really grab them and hone them in. No one can, quote, own them because they're just out there. It's not like a piece of land that you can put a marker on and say, this is mine, and then it becomes yours. And because of that, you have to have a license in order to utilize certain frequencies, and you have certain obligations that you must, government obligations in which you must comply in order to keep that license. Because it is public airwaves, you are not allowed to use it in order to help one candidate over another. The concept is somewhat similar to the fact that you can't use tax dollars to campaign. This is why, if somebody's running for office, they cannot, do a fundraiser in a government-funded building. So you can't have somebody in Congress, do a fundraiser that involves giving you a tour of the Capitol and holding because the idea is, hey, that is taxpayer funded, and you can't force taxpayers to essentially assist you in raising money for your campaign. And the public airwave situation is treated largely the same, that these airwaves belong to the public. So if there's going to be any sort of airtime provided to someone who is a candidate that is going to be of value to them, you have to do the same for the others so that it all comes out equal. That's the concept behind it. Stephen Colbert did not do that, or was not going to do that. He chose not to do that. So what occurred here is CBS recognizing that when it comes to equal time, that, listen, you have Tallarico on, you have to now also have Jasmine Crockett on. And if you don't want to do that, then this cannot go over the public airwaves. You can have it on YouTube, you can, have it on the internet. There are a lot of other venues that you can do this, but you cannot utilize the public airwaves to violate this rule. Stephen Colbert apparently is so insistent on tipping the scales of this election, he refused to have Jasmine Crockett on and instead declared that he would not have James Tallarico on, but instead post that interview on YouTube, of which he essentially promoted it, and he, during his monologue, noted he was told not to talk about it, which, now he blamed all of this on the Trump administration. This has nothing to do with Trump. These are the rules, these are the laws that have been in place forever and a day. And, CBS could be, or Stephen Colbert could be in trouble because he promoted the fact that the interview was on YouTube, and he noted he was told not to do that. The reason he was told not to is because that is still assisting that campaign in a way that you are not assisting that campaign's opponent. That is called an in-kind contribution. There is a value to that. So what Stephen Colbert did was use the CBS airwaves to promote one candidate's interview while not giving another candidate the same opportunity. Stephen Colbert has created a censorship situation here in which he censored Jasmine Crockett. Because he is a liberal, of course, he is gaslighting, and he is claiming that he was banned from airing the interview in order to try and, rig the election or interfere in the election, which is, of course, exactly what he is wanting to do, which is why he chose to have that interview air on YouTube as opposed to allowing Tallarico's opponent, Jasmine Crockett, to come on the show. Stephen Colbert is a straight-up lying piece of trash. Now, what is somewhat enjoyable about this is all about screwing over another Democrat, Jasmine Crockett. Why, you may ask, is he trying to rig the election, alter the outcome of the election, using his power on the public airwaves to tilt the scale towards Tallarico as opposed to Jasmine Crockett, who Jasmine Crockett in the polls has overtaken Tallarico. So this is sort of a Hail Mary by Stephen Colbert to torpedo her in the campaign, handing the victory to Tallarico. Why would he do this? Why would he use his power in order to torpedo a Democrat? Because the Democrats fully recognize, and they've openly talked about this, they believe that if Jasmine Crockett gets the nomination, or if she wins the primary, it greatly diminishes, if not full-on eliminates the possibility that they can beat Ted Cruz in that election. While they recognize it, no matter whom it is that goes up against Ted Cruz, it's going to be a difficult battle. I'm sorry, this isn't Cruz. This is the Cornyn election. I keep saying Cruz. I'm incorrect in that. If Cornyn's got his own battles going on at the same time, he's in a tough primary. So it's against that seat. I apologize for getting mixed up on that. The point is the same, however, that they believe that while this is still an uphill battle for a Democrat to win that Senate seat in Texas, if they have any opportunity at all, it's Tallarico. There are these two podcasters, one of which is a former SNL player. He was the Asian guy that recently wrapped up his time at SNL. And he was doing a podcast with someone else in which they were talking about don't waste your money donating to Jasmine Crockett because she will lose for the Democrats. There's no way that she is going to win that Senate seat. Now, of course, they got accused of racism, so they walked it back. All of this, ultimately, it is about rigging the system for the Democrats, but in order to do that, they're attempting to rig the – this is the same thing Democrats did with the convention and Joe Biden, and the same reason that they did everything they could to prevent RFK Jr. as a Democrat from being on ballots. It's the same reason that they would go to court and have Cornel West and Green thrown off the ballots because, these are all people that they felt would harm the Democrats' chances. And then when Biden they felt was a liability, they overturned that election. So the Democrats, the party of democracy, every step of the way, their primary focus is rigging the system itself. This has become their MO. And that's what Stephen Colbert is doing. This is about picking or using his power on the public airwaves in order to, hopefully his goal and desire here is to prevent Jasmine Crockett from winning that primary, because that diminishes the likelihood that in the general election the Democrat will win. He knows what he's doing. And this is why he's a piece of lying trash. When he's not allowed to violate the law, when he is not allowed to interfere with democracy by trying to rig the election, he lies and claims that he was banned from airing the interview by the Trump administration. If it were not for the ignorance of the Democrat voting base and the constant, often successful rigging of elections like the attempt to do it here, Democrats would have a very, very, very difficult time winning any election. And let me tell you, if Jasmine Crockett ends up losing by a small margin, there's a very strong argument it will be because of this cheating by Stephen Colbert. Now, you aren't really going to be able to ever prove that, obviously. But if enough people, because Stephen Colbert used the public airwaves to promote this interview that he did with this candidate over Jasmine Crockett, and again, like I said, she's been on his show before, but this is in the context of the election. The early voting's underway right now. And if Jasmine Crockett, who has been ahead in the polls, not by a tremendous amount, but consistently nonetheless, just a little bit, if Tallarico ends up pulling it out, it could be very well because of who knows how many people. I mean, it's not a tremendous amount, but all the attention that this has now gotten, that people will go and now watch this interview and be like, actually, I like this guy. This is a much better alternative than Jasmine Crockett. It could work. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company text line. You're the first person I've heard refer to Senator Cornyn. I know it's Cornyn. I don't know why. I think I got into the habit of that forever and a day ago. And yeah, there are a lot of times that there will be a pronunciation like of a country or a name, and people will say that's not how it's pronounced. And usually there are alternate pronunciations. But there is a very good chance I am the only person that's ever said Cornyn on that one. Truth to that. This is how Bernie Sanders spoke at Liberty University on the 2016 election cycle. They had Donald Trump speak there, but did not invite other candidates. Sanders' campaign called them out, and that's how he was invited to speak. It would have violated their 501c3 tax status. And, of course, what is so hilarious about that, it wasn't Liberty University or Donald Trump that Bernie Sanders would have to worry about in rigging the election. It was Hillary Clinton. So I'm telling you, Obama was the last election that for Democrats was pretty much straight up non-rigging. Now, marketing-wise, you could argue they rigged it by, giving him a speaking slot as a state senator and prepping him and then just really talking him up and covering up for things and, all of that. But, the actual system itself, 2016, that's when Democrats began really rigging the system. And Bernie Sanders supporters know this. This isn't an accusation that comes from the hallways of the RNC. This is Bernie Sanders and his supporters' full recognition that since 2016 there has not been a Democrat primary process that did not involve some degree of cheating and rigging by the Democrats. Okay. Yeah, this is a short but great one. Gavin Newsom's such an idiot. I'm telling you. All right, so you had Ted Cruz posted a clip from his podcast. And Gavin Newsom had been out there falsely claiming that National Guard had never been federalized because he either is a liar or just doesn't know what he's talking about. And so during the podcast, Ted Cruz noted that he's historically illiterate and noted that the National Guard was federalized, or that the Arkansas National Guard to enforce desegregation in schools, and he just talked about the history of that actually occurring, and referencing Gavin Newsom for saying otherwise as being historically illiterate. So he was being, I suppose, arguably somewhat kind. He didn't call him a liar, but it's just saying he just doesn't know. Gavin Newsom's response to being called historically illiterate was as follows, in a response on X, I believe. Ted Cruz calling a dyslexic person illiterate is a new low, even for him. All right, so apparently Gavin Newsom is dyslexic, and he is claiming that it is somehow a slur against people who are dyslexic if they are either lying about things that happen in history or don't know, to reference the fact that they are historically illiterate. Now, I'm sure Gavin Newsom knows the difference between illiterate in the sense of the inability to read versus the term historically illiterate, meaning you do not know about history. But even if he doesn't, how pathetic to try and use that as your defense. This is the echo of Joe Biden whenever he clearly was lost, that we were watching in full display cognitive decline, and it would get called out, accusing those that called it out as making fun of him because he has a stutter. which we saw on a number of occasions. Now, he just has a stutter. That's all. How dare you make fun of people with stutters? That's cruel. That's unusual. In fact, I think Gavin Newsom may have been one of those very people that utilized that tactic, trying to claim that recognition of Biden's cognitive decline was making fun of people who had stutter issues. So now Gavin Newsom, you can't point out that he's historically illiterate because apparently that is being cruel to people with dyslexia. The collective brain trust that the Democrats offer up as presidential hopefuls, it sure gives this country great hope, does it not? Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, hunterhardscapes.com. They have one of the better sites out there. Websites can go one of two directions, and with the free usage in many capacities of social media, a lot of companies have just sort of dismissed the, maybe they'll have a website, but I don't know, they just have it there for the sake of having it there. And, some companies, depending on what they do, may find greater advantages in social media than an actual website. But Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, one of the things about Daniel Hunter and everything that they touch, they do it right. So there is no, well, we have a website because you have to, but we don't really have to worry about it that much. Everything they touch, they do it right. And that includes the website. And you can see the comments from people like me who have utilized the services of Hunter and his team for lighting, for drainage, for outdoor living spaces, patio, outdoor kitchens. You can see before and after pictures with a slider, so you can go back and forth and see the before and afters. There's even a cost estimation calculator, which people in that industry don't like to do, and it's for understandable reasons, because people will type in what they think that they want, and then they'll get a ballpark figure, and when it turns out to be off of that a bit, then they pitch a fit, and, well, you said on the website it'd be this much, and yeah, that does come along with it, but they're generally accustomed to dealing with people that aren't necessarily looking to screw over companies in that way. They're not looking to go on the cheap because it is a quality service and a quality product. But they also recognize that it's offset by the value to you as a customer to at least get an idea of what it is that you might need to invest in order to have something real meaningful and such an improvement to your home. So all of that you can find, of course, at hunterhardscapes.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. The New York Times, and this is just typical Orwellian reporting, and why it is that the media is just irrelevant in terms of straightforward truth any longer. And they had a story about the trans shooter that went and targeted his family at that hockey game, killing a couple of them and then himself. And this is somebody that that apparently was even motivated off of the trans issue. Had posted numerous times that, we trans people are going to blow, just I think even the day before that, indicating that he was just about ready to blow his top and the family was against the whole trans thing. And so the entire scenario was built around trans. Yet the New York Times instead just referred to him as somebody who went by two different names. The Orwellian world of the left. Hour 3 straight ahead, news in 60. Our number 3. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're doing fantastic on this Wednesday. Beautiful. Oh, did you get your weather back over there?
No, I didn't. What'd you do
What
with
I
it?
do with it?
Ow.
There it is.
I hear it's going to be beautiful.
It is. Well, you should know. You read it earlier.
I read it really fast and then I ran.
You did.
Out of here.
Tax season, Pinnacle Honda. Max your tax refund. Brand new 26 Honda HR-V Sport. Only $289 a month, or you can drive home. Super sporty 26 Honda Civic Sedan Sport. Only $179 a month. And the Pilot, the new Honda Pilot 25. $3,000 off with rates as low as 2.49%. And there is 1.49% on select certified pre-owned vehicles now through March 2nd. So you got a couple weeks on that. Massive selection of quality pre-owned vehicles. As of the end of last week, there were 30 under $20K to choose from. And so while it probably some of those have been cleared off the lot, I'm sure there's still some available. Point being, a lot of great deals that are going on. Whether you're looking for a certified pre-owned or brand new, lease or purchase, the Max Your Tax Refund event with the Pinnacle family at Pinnacle Honda, ongoing and underway. South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Gavin Newsom, of course, he's running for president of the United States, and one of the things that he just can't do is run on the results of his being governor there, or the policies of Democrats. Some of what has been occurring in California is the direct result of him. Some of it is a combination of his time as governor of California mixed in with predecessors and their boneheaded moves, and so much of it has to do with energy. You know, you have Democrats like Gavin Newsom running around talking about affordability, yet it is the Democrat policies that has made California one of the most expensive places in the country to live, which they virtually eviscerate middle class. So the only people who can really live there comfortably are the uber rich. And then you have those that are just barely scraping by that don't have the means to escape out of there. You know, the people who generally flee, we hear about the high-profile billionaires that look to get out of there and take all the jobs with them, but it's middle-class people that can still afford to get out that do so. The poor get trapped there. It's all, compassion. One of the, and there's a number of reasons gas prices are so high in California. You have taxes, you have regulations. The regulations are a big one with Gavin Newsom and shutting down these refineries so that there is no local gasoline produced, which means that it has to be imported. And out in California, they don't like pipelines because, a pipeline, you can see it, and they love to protest those, which means that you have to ship it in from sea. Now, 40% of gasoline that has been coming into, and this is specifically November, 40% of gasoline coming from the Bahamas. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, I didn't even know that they were an exporter of gas. I had no idea. How is it that, the number one source of fuel in California is actually from the Bahamas? Well, this is for a number of reasons, including another law that's archaic and has been made worse because of regulations, and it is the Jones Act from over 100 years ago. And the Jones Act was put into play. What the Jones Act said is that if you have anything that is being shipped from a California port to another California port, it has to be an American-made ship. It has to be fully equipped with America. So there are all these regulations that exist dictating that it has to fall within these very specified restrictions. Right now, with the 7,000 gasoline oil tankers that are out there floating about, only 55 in the world managed to check off all of the check marks to comply with the Jones Act. Out of 7,000, only 55. So that means that anytime there is some refined gasoline that does make its way from land, let's say Texas refineries, or in Louisiana, or wherever they may be, and it gets shipped, it makes its way to California, but let's say that it's got to make it all the way up to Northern California, which means putting it on a tanker, and then that ship then sails on up. But because of the regulations, there are only 55 out of 7,000 ships that qualify to be able to do that. So do you know what they do? They fill with oil, or they fill with the gasoline. They sail all the way to the Bahamas, and then they sail back. And since the ships aren't going from Port California directly to Port California, then the Jones Act isn't activated. So they take it all the way to the Bahamas, and then they come all the way back. So 40% of the gasoline that is being used in California has to do that. Of course, that is just something else that adds to the cost. This is the way that the liberal mind works. To the Gavin Newsoms and the Democrats in California, this makes perfect sense. The Rube Goldberg way of attacking problems that the left seems to gravitate towards, it's just remarkable to me that people continue to vote for individuals that consistently make their lives more expensive, make their lives more complicated, and for absolutely no reason whatsoever. What does this accomplish? Much of it's done in the name of, like environmentalism, and it often results in things becoming more expensive, or it's done, for example, these are regulations from over 100 years ago, and it was all about, helping the local person, because it was put into place to make sure that, that these ships were American built, and that means American jobs and so forth. Well, those days were over 100 years ago in which that was a relevant driving factor economically. But now what was supposed to be an act that was to help locally economically is resulting in higher prices at the pump, which of course is harmful economically to all of the people throughout California. And God forbid you fix it. You would think, to any rational person, you would change this. You would stop doing it, but that's not how the Democrats do things. Screw you is their attitude. You got Mamdani out there in New York that ran on making things more affordable, and he's already he's got a plan underway. Well, he's going to raise property taxes. So that apparently making it, you have to pay the government more in order to own your own property. That is, according to Democrats, making things more affordable. And he's going to expand areas of parking where they have meters that you have to pay. And I think they're estimating like $1.3 billion of revenue that they're going to take from the average taxpayers that way. So here he is. And this is exactly how socialists work every single time. This is never any surprise. They run on, I'm just an average guy that's not looking to get rich, and I want to make things more affordable. As soon as they get in there, they begin reaping the benefits, just as Mamdani did immediately, moved into Gracie Mansion, which he did not have to do. That's voluntary. Moved out of his crappy apartment so he could live like the rich folks. Talked about installing bidets so he could really level up the class. And in the meantime, proactively working to make it more expensive to live by increasing taxes to own your own property, and areas that it doesn't cost so much to park, beginning to park or charge the average person. Also, he can get more of their money. That is socialism. The rich and powerful get richer. The middle class and lower class become poorer. Weather soon, just moments away. Beautiful day. Right now, latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 50. For your Thursday, sunny and breezy with a high near 71. And taking a look at Friday, sunny skies with a high near 53.
Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. Spring is right around the corner. You can just feel it in the air. And now it is a great time to take a look at your roof because, winter it can be pretty brutal on your roof. The snow and the freezing temperatures, it all takes a toll. And the tricky part is not all damage is obvious from the ground. If you have damage, or maybe you just want to do a checkup on your roof, reach out to Josh over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. They offer free roof inspections, both residential and commercial, and they'll just shoot you straight on the work that needs to be done. And if you do find yourself needing a new roof, the Pyramid team, they offer discounts for our military and our first responders on new roof installs. So if it is time to have the Pyramid Roofing Company team out to your home, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There's a couple of gun control issues going on. One in Missouri we'll get to in a moment, but there's one in Utah as well I want to start with. And a Utah state rep there by the name of Walt Brooks is pushing a ban on open carry on public college campuses and offering a consolation prize that consists of being able to conceal carry without a permit. Open carry on Utah public college campuses has been legal since 2021, and it includes long guns as well as handguns, but the Salt Lake Tribune noted that Brooks is now pushing to allow the concealed carry of handguns only and to mandate that people with long guns store said firearms in their vehicle. Heretofore, a Utah concealed carry permit has been required in order to open carry. Brooks is offering to do away with that requirement as it relates to concealed carry and allow constitutional concealed carry on campus in place of open carry. QPCW quoted Brooks as saying, open carrying does cause a lot of concern with a lot of people, especially on campuses. Well, okay, so a couple of things here. And I've got a news flash. If you think that people on the left in particular who are bothered by open carry are not going to be bothered by concealed carry, you are very mistaken. This entire issue, virtually every gun control issue is emotionally driven, detached from facts and reality. You know, here in Missouri at one point, if memory serves, we had the exact opposite problem, in which we were allowed to open carry, but people were fighting against conceal and carry. That the idea, that if somebody's going to be carrying, people should know. If they don't know, it could be, frightening to people. While in Utah, it appears to be the opposite. That the open carry is the problem, that if you have it, you should have to conceal it. All based off of what? Well, some people might not like it. That's how we do laws now, particularly when it comes to issues that are specifically listed in our Constitution as a thing that is a human right that the government can't touch. Because it might be, for lack of a better term, triggering to someone. It might make them uncomfortable. So and this is a Republican. So we are now shifting away from trying to pass laws that we're told will stop people from being killed by criminals with guns, to now passing laws that make people feel better about guns. Nothing to do with their safety. Nothing to do with diminishing the possibility of some psychopath storming a university campus and killing people. Nope, nothing to do with that. But gun control laws to make people feel better. When you have, you can see extreme left-wingers doing this, but when you have members of the Republican Party doing this, the piece continues. What this means is Brooks' current legislation push, again, this is Utah, House Bill 84, has been changed from protecting open carry and concealed carry to protecting concealed carry alone. State Rep. Rex Shipp, also a Republican, worries how Brooks' new push would impact students who hunt, as HB 84 would bar them from bringing their hunting rifle or shotgun into their dorms. Instead, the students who would have to leave their rifle or shotgun in their car, which could be burglarized. But if you notice, none of this is about actually making anybody safer. So if you are somebody who believes in the human right to protect oneself and believes in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights as it lists out those human rights specifically that are no-go for government intervention, you have to ignore all of that because it might make someone uncomfortable to see you with a firearm. This is Utah. Of course, it is the land of the Mitt Romneys. Now to Missouri. Missouri lawmaker files Haley's law to address domestic violent firearm access. Now, this is a Democrat. This is a left-wing Democrat, really involved in LGBTQ stuff, so sort of, hits all the check marks of an irrational human. Missouri State Rep. Elizabeth Fuchs will file new legislation called Haley's Law aimed at preventing domestic violent tragedies involving firearms. The law is named for Fuchs' cousin because this is so many of our laws, if you aren't aware of this, that get passed are emotionally driven because the person who writes up the law has something happen in their life, and so they think, it's something that's unfortunate or something they don't like. So because they're in a position of power, we should all be subject to changes in our rights and the laws because something happened to them personally. And what is Now, my perspective on that is that is the ultimate in elitism. That the millions of people who live in Missouri, our daily lives, should be subject to the personal preferences of lawmakers because of something that happened in their family. The way they see it is this is validation, that this is justification. They don't see it as, hey, just because I'm emotionally engaged in something and have personal preferences with the way things should be, that doesn't mean that's not what the Constitution's about. You know, whenever you put your hand on the Bible and you're swearing an oath, it's not, well, I swear to uphold whatever my personal preferences are. But that's, in their minds, if they are making a decision based off of something that has personally impacted them, so in other words, you know, there's like a conflict of interest there, that to them isn't reason to step back and say, maybe I shouldn't be involved in it. To them, that is reason for them to force all of us through law to comply with what they believe is somehow going to erase what occurred with them or their family or prevent it from happening to someone else. Now, the law is named after the lawmaker's cousin, 22-year-old Haley Jennings, who was killed in November 2025 by her boyfriend before he took his own life, murder-suicide. Haley's law would allow family members or household members to petition a court to temporarily remove firearms from someone experiencing a severe mental health crisis and posing a credible threat. Now, aside from these discussions have been had numerous times, the concept of innocent until proven guilty and the people that are always going on and on about due process suddenly wanting just a family to say, yeah, we don't think they should have a firearm, and then the government saying, okay. You know, that to many people is a concept. Because, I mean, you could apply that to anything. Well, you know, they might run her over. Well, I guess we shouldn't have a license either. I mean, just no trial, no charges, nothing whatsoever. Aside from that, just the logistics of this. Who in their right mind believes that a person who is so unhinged or unstable or evil, whatever it is, whatever combination of components that causes a person to desire to take the life of another, that they are going to, when suddenly there is a knock on the door from law enforcement because the people who oftentimes are the target of their hate has called police and said, yeah, we're here to take away your guns because these people you hate said so, that they're going to be like, oh, okay. And then just not do anything about it, not go out and get another firearm, or not decide to, you know, bludgeon the person to death with a hammer or with a ball bat, or, you know, douse them with gasoline and light them on fire, or burn their house down while they're asleep, or hit them with a car, or poison them, or all of the multitude of ways that people kill each other. You know, there's the whole component of, you've got the two steps here. One, is this the role of government anyhow? And then even if it is it actually going, if you think about it logically, is this actually going to do what you want to accomplish? And everything, human behavior, common sense says no. If a human being is so angry or out of their mind or evil or maybe all of these things that they're going to take a life, the idea that they are just going to, you know, sit back when those very people have their guns taken away from them and be like, well, gosh, you know, I guess that they're actually right. It's a good thing that is detached from all reality. It is not going to solve the problem. And here's the thing. If a person believes that we should have a system set up in which if a family member or a loved one or a friend or whomever goes to court and declares, yeah, they're dangerous. They're gonna at any moment try to kill me or kill someone else. So they lose the right to due process and they lose their Second Amendment rights. They should not have a firearm any longer. If that's fair game, then why do we not just say they should just be locked up? If the ultimate goal here is to save people, the only way that you can come pretty darn close to making sure that happens is not taking their gun away, given that there's thousands of other ways to kill someone, but you just haul them away and lock them up. If we're throwing due process out, if you can have law enforcement take away things from you, your rights, your freedoms away from you without actually being charged with something, without there being a trial, then why would you do something that was basically symbolic, and that be the firearm, which does not stop somebody from killing someone, and instead, why don't you just haul them off to jail and leave them there? Of the two approaches in which we completely dismiss constitutional rights and due process, the just hauling them off and locking them up is the one that at least makes it virtually impossible for them to actually go through with the killing. But see, that's all logical thinking. Well, we can't do that. Oh, so the goal really isn't to save lives. So it's, these are laws that are designed just to make people feel good. Well, if that person didn't have a gun, they wouldn't have done it. So let's just say you can take it away. That's it. And listen, all due respect to people who I understand the emotion of feeling these things, and you do but these are steps that don't remedy that. And our inability because of emotions to recognize that these are not approaches that will even work. But then everybody wanting to throw in because, well, I don't want to look this way or seem that way. Reality be damned. Rights be damned. Due process be damned. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 74. Tonight, mostly clear with a low near 50. For your Thursday, sunny and breezy with a high near 71. And for Friday, sunny with a high near 53.
Elon Musk's Starlink crackdown crippling attacks on Ukraine as Russian casualties rates soar. This is a move by Elon Musk's SpaceX. Oh, I should note, if you aren't aware, that whole thing is still going on. You may not realize it because the left doesn't appear to be that interested in Ukraine anymore for some reason. You don't see the big Ukrainian flags being waved or any of the poorly made posters that are supporting Zelensky or Ukraine by these left-wingers protesting across the country or in Springfield. And I think that'd be a real interesting question for the media to ask some of these protesters next time they're at an event, whether it's No Kings or whatever the heck they'll come up with next. Like, whatever happened to that Ukraine thing you guys were protesting? Is that still happening? You know, it's funny because as soon as Zelensky began presenting Donald Trump as the answer to Ukraine's problems, as soon as NATO said there's one person that can stop this, it's Donald Trump, as soon as Elon Musk, it was making headlines that he was making moves that were helping the Ukrainians, suddenly the left didn't care about the Ukrainian people any longer. Isn't that amazing? It's almost as if they never really cared about them. It was just some sort of political weapon that they felt that they could use against Republicans or against Donald Trump. No shame. These people, no shame. No morality that's anchored in anything. Empty vessels. The move by Musk to shut down Russia's illegal use of Starlink satellite internet has dealt Moscow a fresh battlefield setback as its casualties rate soar. On February 1st, SpaceX blocked unauthorized Starlink terminals in Ukraine after discovering them mounted on Russian weapons systems and drones obtained on the black market, a violation of Starlink's terms of service, which ban the use of terminals in offensive operations. Now, only verified Ukrainian devices are allowed to connect to Starlink, effectively locking Russian users out. Lieutenant Denis Yaroslavsky, who commands a special reconnaissance unit for the Ukrainian Armed Forces, said for 3 to 4 days after the shutdown, they really reduced the assault operations, they being Russia. The disruption comes as Russia suffers its worst death rate since the start of the 4-year-old war, U.S. and Ukrainian intelligence officials tell the Post, threatening the Kremlin's ability to replace those forces sent to slaughter by Putin. Noting on any given day, depending on your scale of analysis, my sector was already achieving 20-to-1 casualties before the shutdown, and we are an elite unit, a unit commander of Ukraine's 3rd Army Corps, who goes by the codename Jackie, told the Post, referring to inflicting 20 Russian casualties for every one suffered by their side. He noted regular units have no problem going 5-to-1 or 8-to-1. With Starlink down, 13-to-1 casualty rate for a regular unit is easy. Now, I want you people on the left, I'm talking to wooden heads here. It's concrete. Inability or unwillingness to think. But this guy that you have long called a Nazi, this guy that you would go around vandalizing the products that he produced, that people purchased, this guy that you have demonized, that he has done more in real, meaningful ways to help the cause that you claim is a cause for democracy, that you claim you care about. There is nothing that you can do. You think you hold up a sign? And the massive boost that Elon Musk, and this isn't new, by the way, this was happening during the Biden administration as well, with the allowance of Starlink to be used by the Ukrainians. Elon Musk has arguably, and when all the dust settles, I'm sure this have ways of calculating this. But right now, just knowing from real time what it is that the Ukrainian officials and the military have said about the real life impact that Elon Musk's voluntary as a citizen decisions have made far exceed anything that anyone has done in order to help the Ukrainians. And you left-wingers, you change your little color schemes on social media and you stand out there with some sign with a Ukrainian flag barking about Elon Musk being a Nazi when you can't even begin to fathom the amount of assist he has given to the Ukrainians. And just the symbolism, the worthless symbolism of standing on the side of a road while traffic honks at you and you think, oh, I'm really doing something for the Ukrainian cause. What's up next? Let's trash on Elon Musk, someone who actually is helping the Ukrainian cause. See, this is all largely why the left doesn't talk so much about Ukraine any longer. Because the useful idiots have been redirected. And they will be redirected again and again, waiting for their marching orders without question. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Looking for an all-around awesome company to help you navigate all of your HVAC needs? Well, you found it with Foreman Mechanical. They offer residential and commercial HVAC services. They also offer repairs, new unit installs, and indoor air quality testing as well. And if something pops up after those normal business hours, the Foreman team, they've got you covered with their 24/7 emergency service line as well. I've used them a couple times throughout the years for just a couple of simple maintenance things, and the last time that they came out, actually, they did a new unit install, and that was about a year ago, and they're just amazing to work with. Shout out to Austin. He typically seems to be the main tech that comes out to my home, but the rest of the team, they're great too. So if it's time to do annual maintenance or it's time for a unit upgrade, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
The Democrats once again entertaining us with the outrage that they have and how it is they distribute that outrage. There is a Jewish member of Congress from Florida by the name of Randy Fine. And he responded to a Muslim activist in New York City that has ties to Mamdani. He's, I think, a Palestinian activist, very involved in left-wing politics. And her name is Nardine Kiswani. And she made a posting saying, finally, New York City is coming to Islam. Dogs definitely have a place in society, just not as indoor pets. Continuing to say, like we've said all along, they are unclean. We being Muslims. And this is common knowledge in the Islamic world. And while clearly, as you get some, Muslims that are more Americanized, they don't mind. They may not view dogs as the same way, but this is much like in the Muslim world, showing the bottom of your shoe. That's considered to be impolite. And we all have our different customs. And when it comes to dogs, that is pretty commonplace in the Muslim culture. And as we see New York City, the calls to prayer being broadcast, flooding, the streets 5 times a day, starting at 5 a.m., and Mamdani citing Islam as overriding federal immigration laws in his assessment as mayor. And now you've got this ally of his who's a left-wing Muslim activist saying now that New York City is becoming Muslim, let's all get on the record here, dogs should not be indoors. So you can imagine increasingly you have normal people, including some Democrats that, love dogs. They're like, wait, what? In fact, I was having a conversation with someone about this very subject matter, and they noted that this might be the thing that makes some Democrats go, whoa, wait a minute here. Like all of the other atrocities, all of the other, Mamdani atrocities or those that in the name of Islam do things, they're fine with. But wait, you're talking about my dog? So the congressman from Florida responded to the post by saying, if they force us to choose between dogs and Muslims, not a difficult one. So he's, as a Jewish person, he recognizes like, you're declaring, hey, we have Muslim, because that's what the declaration was. She wasn't saying this is my personal opinion. She said, like we have said all along, they're unclean. So she's declaring that Muslims, now that they're taking over New York City, hey, you got us in charge, then you can, the dogs, they got to go. And he's like, not a difficult choice. Dogs are going to win on that one. Well, how dare you? The left is going apoplectic. I think it was Ocasio-Cortez declared it was the most horrific racist thing she's ever heard in her life. This is where the average person, even a lot of relatively reasonable Democrats, see the level of outrage and begin to wonder why is it when Americans get raped and murdered and tortured for whatever reason you ignore that, but if some human trafficker gets deported, suddenly you're outraged. Why is it that you can have somebody that is part of the New York City mayor's inner circle declare that we are turning you Muslim. New York City is becoming Muslim and dogs are out. That's okay. But if a Jewish member of Congress says, hey, if we got to choose between the two, I think we're going to go with the right to have dogs as pets. That of the two comments is outrageous to you. That they're calling for the guy to be censured, punished in Congress for this. There is one religion consistently, the only religion, what I would call traditional religion, that the left protects and promotes, and that is the religion that is utilized to justify murdering people. It is the religion that is used to justify stoning to death women who get raped. It is the religion that is utilized to justify throwing suspected homosexuals off buildings. And while, of course, not everyone who is Muslim believes or support these things, the fact of the matter is this is the religion that is responsible for these things. And in parts of the world where it's prevalent, you generally have a majority of the people within that country say that they support it as well. That is the one religion that Democrats come to the defense of, and here it is once again. Springfield's Talk 1041. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, springtime, just for a lot of folks, good time to put the house on the market, getting ready. Summer will be around the corner, a good time to move if you got kids because it's summertime, out of school and so forth. And part of that process for a lot of people is to, before you have the realtor come do an evaluation to fix the things that need to be fixed, like, oh, the carpet's outdated, we got to do this, we got to do that. Don't do do nothing until you first reach out to Emily Johnson and have her come look at your home. And you may think, well, no, I get it, but gosh, I'd be embarrassed for her to, see the kitchen, and because I know that she's going to say we have to update that, and so I just want to be better prepared. Just don't do anything. Don't spend a dime, because there are a lot of things that you may think that you need, but in this region at this particular time may not be helpful to you at all, could work against you. And there may be things that you actually do need to spend money on in order to upgrade, in order to sell your home, because they're things that are just expected by buyers in this day and age. And you don't want to be spending money that's going to work against you or not help you. And that's where she steps in. So don't get out a paintbrush. Don't get out a screwdriver. Don't call anyone other than Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, when it comes to what you may need to do in order to get your home market ready. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. The Trace Adkins concert coming up, Black Oak Amphitheater in June. Your chance to win tickets. You can text the Pyramid Roofing Company text line, the word swing, 447 KSGF to get yourself registered. And we'll have a new keyword with more tickets tomorrow.